Hello, everyone. A very warm good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, wherever you are, to all of you. Welcome to this webinar by LogicBoxes titled Demystifying ICANN Accreditation. We'd thank you for your patience, for waiting, and we directly jump to the presentation. And over to Ishan Sathwalekar, our presenter for the evening, to take you through this informative webinar.
Hi, everyone. A big thank you to everyone who's taken the time out to attend this webinar, and heartfelt apologies for the last minute rescheduling of the webinar last week. So I've been with LogicBoxes for about 7 years, and I've been lucky enough to travel the world attending conferences and interacting with a lot of hosting companies, domain resellers, and ISPs. And it's in these interactions that I realized that there are many misconceptions, or should I say myths, surrounding ICANN accreditation, its eligibility, viability, pros and cons for the various stakeholders in our industry. So I sincerely hope by the end of this webinar, you guys should have a clear idea of what it takes to become an ICANN accredited registrar. And more importantly, if ICANN accreditation is for you. My name, as Clifford said, is Ishan, and I head the business development team for LogicBoxes. Later in this webinar, I'll be joined by Vikol So, Managing Director of NamesPro. NamesPro is one of our fastest growing and most successful partners. And at the end of my presentation, Vikol shall talk about his decision to get NamesPro ICANN accredited and how his business has been impacted as a registrar. For starters, a little bit about us. LogicBoxes for the past decade has been one of the leading technology and consultancy providers for web hosts, registrars, registries, and ISPs. Our solutions range from providing ICANN accreditation consultancy solutions to domain management systems for enterprise hosting and domain businesses. The domain industry has grown significantly since the first domain was registered about 33 years ago. In addition to the 339 million domains registered till date, we have been welcomed with an avalanche of options with over 1,200 new GTLDs to choose from. And as global internet penetration percentages increase annually, so do domain volumes and opportunities to acquire new customers. So the key question here is, what is stopping resellers from making healthy profits on domain names? Now, I've taken the liberty to list down some of the most common pain points that resellers have to deal with when trying to grow their business. They have to pay higher domain cost due to them being at the mercy of their registrars and their pricing models. They occasionally have lesser recognition in the market and therefore find it harder to penetrate new markets and build their customer base. Additionally, with the coming of the 1200 plus GTLDs, as I mentioned previously, these registries are looking for partners to promote their extensions and incentivize them with registry funds. Resellers are by and large ineligible for this, as the registrars have direct access to them. This brings me to the question, have you considered ICANN accreditation? Let's begin with the basics. What is ICANN accreditation? ICANN accreditation is basically the official license stamp that ICANN gives a company who has intentions of offering, managing, analyzing, or protecting domain names. The accreditation process generally involves multiple steps, some of which include building the application, liaising with ICANN while they evaluate the application, connecting with registries, and completing all the technical registry connection tests. Of course, ICANN accreditation is an investment, both financially and in resource utilization, but it has its benefits, and I shall walk you through them in the coming slides. Now, at these conferences that I attend, I get a lot of prospects telling me that being an ICANN accredited registrar was relevant 10 years ago, Is it even relevant today? The answer to that is a big yes. Customers globally have become more aware of how companies handle their personal data and whether or not they have the technology in place to protect it. The General Data Protection Regulation, or what we refer to very fondly as GDPR, was enforced by the EU last year and was applicable to all businesses operating in or with in the US, in the EU, my apologies. This opened up a dialogue even beyond the EU, if whether the customer not only has true control over his or her data, but also has the power to hold companies accountable for storing it. Therefore, the need to be or work with a verified, credible, and crucially tenable service provider is immense. ICANN accredited registrars potentially build that very trustworthiness as they are continually audited and verified by ICANN. So, what do resellers think or ask me when it comes to ICANN accreditation? Who is it for? Am I eligible to get ICANN accredited? Is the process even feasible? Isn't it a financially exhaustive process? And finally, where do I start? What do I need to do? I'll be taking you through some of these points. If you are a domain reseller, a web host, a web designer, a domainer, IP brand, or an internet service provider, ICANN accreditation is for you. The entire accreditation process requires a lot of resources to be exclusively aligned to the cause. One may need to hire a team who is familiar with ICANN's policies and technical mandates to ensure seamless project completion. So yes, the process of ICANN accreditation requires a significant investment in time, effort, and money. There are three mandatory ICANN fees that a reseller needs to take into account when planning to get ICANN accredited. There is an application fee, which is payable when all your documents and tech specs are ready. Then there's the annual accreditation fee, post you getting accredited, that ICANN charges to every registrar. Lastly, the quarterly fee, which is billed once you start registering domains or finish a full quarter post accreditation. This fee varies as it is split amongst all ICANN accredited registrars equally. This brings me to the potential upside in being an ICANN accredited registrar, both in revenue and in establishing your brand. As I stated earlier, as a registrar, you buy domains at base cost directly from registries and therefore have full control over profit margins and revenue forecasting. Now, let me give you an example. Let's take the case of a .com. You may currently, as a reseller, be paying upwards of about $10 for a domain name, when the cost to the registrar is actually about $8 as they get it directly from the registry. Now, that's a huge profit margin that the registrar currently benefits from. Additionally, you can boost immediate revenue via registry co-marketing funds. Being a registrar also gives you flexibility in choosing multiple business models to tap into new markets. You could choose to go retail, wholesale, or even both. So, let me ask you two questions. One, don't you want to pay much lesser for a domain name? Two, wouldn't you much rather be on the other side and be the one setting the pricing for your reseller or customer chain? The other revenue opportunity that you have as a registrar is the ability to earn money on domain names post expiry. As a reseller, all domains that expire are deleted and they in turn land up with drop catchers. Your parent registrar renews these high value, high traffic expired domains with the help of parking companies that automate the process. Therefore, as a registrar, you can potentially leverage a parallel revenue stream via domain parking and transfer fulfillment. Moving on to what I believe is one of the major reasons why companies choose to become a registrar, the branding benefits. As an ICANN registrar, you potentially have greater customer and industry recognition. There aren't many registrars out there, so you can immediately stand out and look to expand your business in untapped geographies. As a registrar, you organically attract new customers and partners due to the trust and brand factor. This would enable you to increase subscriptions for your core products, especially if you're a hosting provider or an ISP. Now, there are other benefits that may be hugely relevant to some of you attending the webinar today, like having your registrar name on every whois request, having access to registry level commands and communication, being a part of the registrar stakeholder group and other registrar communities, or have the opportunity to consolidate your entire domain portfolio under your single registrar brand. So now that we've discussed who can get ICANN accredited, what are the initial costs associated with the process, and what are the potential advantages of you becoming a registrar, let us take a look at a live case example. As I stated earlier, I'm delighted to introduce you to Vikol from NamesPro. He shall be taking over the webinar now and telling you why he chose to get NamesPro ICANN accredited and what has been his experience as a registrar so far. For background, NamesPro is one of the leading domain name and hosting providers in Canada, and they have been an ICANN accredited registrar for about 4 years now. I'm sure you guys are tired of my voice, so over to you, Vikol.
Thank you, Ishan. So hi, everyone. This is Vikol here, and I'm from namespro.ca. So to start, let me first give you a brief introduction of us, and then after that, I will talk a little bit about our own accreditation experience. So we are a domain registrar in Canada. We start our business roughly in the year of like 2002. So at that time, we opt to be a domain reseller because, as you can probably imagine, there are lots happening when you start a business. So being a startup, even the thought of getting a credit is far beyond our stretch, not to mention like all the technical and financial capabilities. So signing up for domain reselling is simply a logical first step for us. So as our business grows, we started to see a lot of benefit of getting ICANN accredited. First, we have gained a lot of knowledge and experience on how the domain business works. We also have developed a very good customer base, and we have fortunately developed a stable financial foundation. So at that time, it makes sense for us to start considering being ICANN accredited. So we researched on the process a little bit and found it actually quite intimidating. It was long. It involved a lot of steps, and also it has some financial commitment as well. So long story short, we eventually find this company, LogicBoxes, and they helped us with the process. So with their help, we were able to get accredited very quickly. So what are the key benefits did we see after getting the accreditation? So first of all, domain cost for us is now much lower because we do not have to pay for the markup by our reselling partner. So that means more profit for us. But despite that, like aside from that, by far the most important benefit that I see is about credibility. So in the past, one of the questions that we get asked a lot from our customer is, who is this XYZ company, which is like our reselling partner? I thought I was dealing with NamesPro. So this is when they see their domain name on who is this place. So it was actually not easy to explain it to them because it could make us look incompetent. But after the accreditation, our name is now proudly displaying on Whois. And that gives a lot of confidence to our users because they know they're dealing with a legitimate company. And because of this, over all these years, we have actually gained a lot of more high-profile customer, such as like the RCMP, which is the police department in Canada, like a lot of university clients, corporate clients, political parties. So without the accreditation, it would not be possible for us to serve this type of client base. And also as a ripple effect, because we now have all these high profile clients, we actually attract more and more regular customer because they have confidence in us. And at the end of the day, this also translates to more business and more profit for us. So yeah, to wrap up, I'm glad that we actually went down this route of getting accredited. Should we have stayed being a reseller, we would not have accomplished what we have done today. So I hope my personal experience would help you in making your own decision of getting your accreditations. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I think that's it, Isan.
Thanks, Nicole. I think I have a question. When you were a reseller and you were thinking about getting ICANN accredited, is there a right time to get ICANN accredited? Do you have any additional pointers that you would like to highlight for the webinar attendees today?
Yes, actually, well, I must be clear that ICANN accreditation is not for everybody, because the process actually takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and even a lot of money in order to get to the goal. So, and even after you got your accreditation, it actually takes a lot of work to maintain it, because you now have to manage your relationship with a lot of registries and maintaining your fund, your balance in the account, etc. So it's also a lot of financial commitment. So my advice is to review your business to make sure that the accreditation is giving you enough benefits, but without a burden too big for you to bear. And if that's the case, by all means, I think you should go ahead.
Awesome. Thanks, Nicole. I don't think I need to go ahead with this webinar right now. I think you've done such a good job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I hope Nicole's story connected with a lot of you attending today and gave you a clear idea of why a brand chooses to get ICANN accredited and how it could potentially help your business grow. Just adding to what Nicole was saying, about how technical or complex the process of getting ICANN accredited is, let me highlight some of the basic requirements or basic checks that you would need to take when you make that decision of getting accredited. The first, and I feel the most important, is that you need to know exactly why you want to become a registrar and what you aim to achieve through it. This is translated directly onto your ICANN application. Once your business and technical aspects of the application are completed, you would need to submit it to ICANN for them to review. You then pay the application fee, as I mentioned earlier, to ICANN post-approval. ICANN then further evaluates your application, post which they grant you the accreditation. Now, this is when you can begin contacting registries you choose to be accredited for and initiate their respective OT&E processes. And finally, last but not the least, you're ready to go live as a brand new ICANN accredited registrar. Now, in today's day and age, ICANN compliance is very important as it provides guidelines and regulations you as a registrar would need to adhere to when running your business. Again, few pointers, key areas that the compliance processes revolve around are the registration data directory services that look at the updating and sharing of domain related data between parties. Domain name transfers from one registrar to another, rules around domain renewals, data escrow, which is basically a submission of registrar's domain database in an ICANN approved format at regular intervals. You've probably heard of this, Uniform Domain Resolution Policies, or UDRP, that look at domain name disputes by verifying registrant information and abiding by various registry registrar agreements, the RRAs, for some of you who know. There are a lot of other guidelines associated with being a registrar, and you can check those out on the official ICANN website, which is on the link in the deck. So let's take a look at what we've covered so far. Anyone who has or wants anything to do with selling, buying, protecting domain names, ICANN accreditation is for you. The accreditation process has multiple steps to take you through initial documentations to eventual registry accreditations. Yes, ICANN accreditation is an investment, but the potential mid to long-term benefits far outweigh them. Lastly, you can choose to get ICANN accredited independently or work with a partner that specializes in the process. With this, we've come to the end of the webinar presentation. I'm sure you have a lot of questions, some of which I shall definitely try and answer now. I hope they aren't too complex and tough. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ishan and Vikol. That was a pretty insightful presentation on ICANN accreditation. We actually have quite a few questions. I'm not really sure if we have the time to answer all of them, but we just want to point on a few. Ishan, I'll just read them out to you. You could probably get them addressed.
Sure.
The first one is about registry funds. You spoke. I guess that's because you spoke about how registry funds, how registrars are accessible, have access to registry funds. So the question is, do registry funds start coming in as soon as a company gets accredited?
No, if that was a reality, that would have been great. But the truth is, obviously, registries are looking at registrars, big or small, that have potential in growing in markets, be it in untapped geographies or in saturated markets. So I think for a registrar for a company who's just got ICANN accredited, I think it's very important for them to communicate to the registry that they have a clear plan as to how they want to acquire customers. Now, marketing funds and marketing interactions with registries need not always be in terms of funds, but they can also be like co-marketing events that a registry can host with a registrar to get more customers and tell them about the value proposition of selling a specific TLD. I hope that answers the question, Cliff.
Okay, it very well does. Moving on to the next one, it's about how many domains would a company need to manage for them to consider an ICANN accreditation?
So that's a good question. I get asked this question quite a lot. I think the answer to this is revolves around what, as I mentioned previously, your intent. What do you want to get out of becoming an ICANN accredited registrar? We've worked with a lot of partners that have started off with literally 0 domains, but they have a very clear idea of what are their 1-year plan, 2-year plan, even a 5-year plan as to how they want to grow their business, be it in domains or in their hosting products. So I think the scale of the company does not matter. Obviously, there are financial considerations that a brand would need to look at when choosing to get accredited. So, there is going to be an initial investment. Are you going to use your existing working capital and use that to get accredited, or you're going to rely on your existing customer base and domains that get you revenue year on year to basically buffer that investment? So the call is the decision is completely up to the brand, but I don't believe scale is necessarily a criteria when deciding to becoming a registrar.
Thanks, Ishan. That helps. We have a few more questions. However, I think we have time for just one question to be answered on the webinar. For those who have their questions unanswered, we will be making sure that either Ishan or someone from our team reaches out to you and gets those questions answered in the quickest possible time. And Ishan, this one last question that is actually been asked by actually three people have asked the same question in different ways. Is basically how long does it take for the entire ICANN accreditation process to get over?
Okay, so speaking idealistically, it should take about 5 to 6 months for the entire ICANN accreditation process to be completed. Now, when I say the entire process, I mean from beginning to build your application to submitting it to ICANN to getting it approved and the entire ICANN approval system. So I would say 5 to 6 months, but you know, this timeline can vary depending on how long a company takes in building out the application. How are their communication, how are they answering the technical or business related questions ICANN is asking them. So it all depends on those finer details, but on a higher level I would say 5 to 6 months would be a good time wherein you should get ICANN accredited.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Ishan, for the answers to the questions. Thanks once again, Vikol, for being a guest at our presentation, and thanks to all the attendees who spent time and attended this presentation. We'll be sending a copy of the deck to you via email so that you can reference it and probably get back to us with more questions if you have any issues or any doubts around the ICANN accreditation process or regarding becoming a registrar or staying as a reseller or a web presence provider. For now, that's about it from us. Thank you so much once again to everyone who was part of this webinar, and we will reach out to you soon with post-webinar details. And you guys have a lovely day, evening ahead. Thank you so much.